Yeah. You might help with anything. Don't be alarmed when I'm in there.
You want to name maybe number 13 open works.
There's no paper towels.
There's
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all down there. Yeah. The tallest wall, okay, so just hit.
How are you guys?
Good, you?
Yeah, really good. Happy to have you. You have some technology this time.
I should go back to the Zoom.
This is mixed or eight.
Hey. You should be in like grade 8.
So she's in.
And we're live, likely folks.
Yeah, but now Courtney's in
She's on the kids.
the public meeting,
Yeah,
as well as the public in the box above her.
we're live.
Can you hear us, Courtney?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So welcome everyone to our open meeting of November 13th, and welcome to our student trustees. I also want to acknowledge the traditional territories that we Self people, as well as our Métis Nation. And of course, we're reminded too that we lost a larger than life leader whose funeral was on Sunday, who was very responsible for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that came about as we continue that journey. And then you will notice we have our flags being lowered to half mast this week for the loss of Premier Horgan. That will continue, I believe, until his funeral. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Ward, seconded by trustee Jepson. Anyone opposed? Carried. Motion to receive the minutes of the open meeting held October 9th. Moved by trustee Kent Laidlaw, seconded by trustee Dave Rayner. Any errors or omissions, Dave? We're good?
No,
Oh, excellent.
it's not in the minutes.
Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, for information, there is the report on the closed meeting of October 9th. And that will move us to our education reports. I'll pass it over to you, Courtney.
So there was a new Indigenous Education Council policy that was released by the ministry in August. This is one area where SD58 was ahead of a lot of different districts in the fact that we already had an Indigenous Education Council. But what it has meant is there are changes from how our IEC currently exists and the policy that has been rolled out by the ministry. So one of the significant changes is that local First Nations bands are now able to designate two members. How the formal process works, we extend a letter inviting them to the IEC and to supply two designates. They can choose to do that or choose not to do that. It's up to each local First Nation of whether they would like to participate. If the names come forward, then as a board, they are appointed. Another change is non-local First Nations are also extended an invite for one seat on the IEC. Once that process is done, the group of First Nations designates that have been appointed, they meet and we look at our student population and who else needs to be extended an invite to the table. So in our case, it would be our Métis community. And as a local group, they decide how many seats that they would, or invites that they would like to extend out. There's kind of an idea that it would represent the population of your school district. So, so your number of Indigenous representatives would represent your population of Indigenous learners. Your number of Métis seats would represent your number of Métis individuals. And then if there's anyone else that they feel should have a role at the table. So it's really a collaborative process that's driven by our rights holders. So we're working our way through that, but we're doing a lot of good work with our IEC. And when we met with them as a group about the new process, we decided that we would continue on with our existing IEC. And we've set a deadline to be through the process work that we need to do. So in terms of the invites, the appointments, once that is all established, then we have to do terms of reference and then establish a chair and some other pieces that go along with it. The goal is to have this done by the end of spring break, which I think that we are on track for. And one of the things is I think our IEC was working really well as a group. So it gives me hope that we're going to continue the good work that we've been doing over the years. And we'll have some new voices or different voices around our table, which will hopefully help enrich our process as we work towards truth and reconciliation.
Has there work been done in the past, because it was a component of a school district? We provided support to the IEC. Has government looked at providing funding to an IEC for support, or or does the IEC, do you think they're going to want us to continue to support the role at the district level, because it now will be a separate entity?
The expectation is there's still support that comes from the school district for the cost of it, and there's budget, like there's dollars in our overall envelope that we get towards this. So I see it continuing much like it has existed in the past, and in some ways we're in a really good spot compared to others because we already have a foundation to build on. So we're not building this plane as we're flying it. So we already have an existing structure, and this is really meant to enhance what we're doing.
Thank you. Any other questions for Courtney? You're also going to see several reports as updates in your package. That was one thing when we had people coming and presenting to us orally. We had said we also wanted to get written reports each month too, to keep us up to date, and that had fallen a bit off the table, I think actually around the flood fund. So we're just getting that back onto the table so that you're actually getting those reports from the different groups within the district. So I'll turn that back over to you, Courtney.
So our first one is from our director of inclusive ed. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I thought I would highlight one or two from each of the reports, and then if you had additional questions. So some of the things that we're quite proud of around inclusive ed is Misty is actually doing hands-on training with Papard, which is an outreach program for autism and related disorders. So she's actually been in the classroom with the teachers, learning these pieces for the training that they're provided. It's quite intense. It's about 2 full weeks and then 2 part-time weeks in the classroom, but we did the first week last week. It's going really well. We're really excited about the potential for this, and I think it's a really great proactive piece. And I really love that Misty is modeling the lifelong learning component and also learning alongside our teachers and our admin. So the other thing that I wanted to highlight is Misty was able to have Jenny Williams come in. She's a former Ministry of Education and Childcare auditor, And we actually did early morning PD on this, where all of our principals came in at 7 a.m. and she did a great job of walking us through what our files should look like. So, you know, in the past, we would sometimes get the notice that there's always an audit cycle. You never know quite when you're going to be audited, but it's going to come at some point. In the past, that was more of a stressful experience, where the goal with this one is to be much more prepared. So it's much easier to do the work as you're doing it than trying to go back and make sure that you're not missing pieces. And she did a great job walking our administrators through what the file should look like. And I think it really speaks to the point, like, we shouldn't just assume when people move up to admin that they necessarily know, you know, what an inclusive ed file should look like. And we also did this with our student support teachers, so that we're all on the same page. We have a common language, we have a common expectation. So if I pull that file at one of our elementary schools, it's going to look the same as if I pull it at one of our high schools. So Misty's doing some really great work in our district. I'm not sure if there's any other questions that came out of her report, but she's working really well, and she does a great job of being in schools and supporting our kids. And she does a great job with supporting our parents. You know, if you have a child that has inclusive needs, you know, sometimes the system can be a little bit overwhelming, and she does a great job of walking parents through that process and the supports that we can offer.
Dave?
Hey, Courtney, this is really great. Just on the prevention, I'm not sure, is that a counselor in that is heading up that program? And then also for the ICY team update,
Yeah.
I see the clinical counselor position, but there was a peer support worker. Was that not being posted?
So that one is on hold right now. So health is, interior health is what I'd probably refer to as like the banker board. So they're the lead organization with this one. So we take our lead and our direction from them. What we posted right now is our the clinical counselor position. So that is the one that is currently out. We're still looking for applicants for that one at the moment, and the peer one is on hold. It sounds like some of the funding hasn't come through yet. So before, obviously, we want to hire, we want to make sure that the funding is going to be able to be there to support it. And I'm sorry, I missed the other question.
Just the prevention program, is that using our in-staff counselors? Is that how this is being?
That one I'd actually have to I'd have to ask Misty about, because I'm not sure if it's an outside one or what I think it's an outside agency, but I'd have to clarify with Misty, but I can get back to you about that one.
That's great. Thank you.
I did notice that I don't think John was able to get on to our Zoom.
We're working on that.
Okay.
Cool. Very cool.
We're on to the Indigenous Ed report now.
Sorry, I was just texting John back that we're working on it. For Indigenous Ed, probably one of the things that is most visual, and one of the things we're most proud of is our welcome signs have been installed at our school.
Awesome.
I think it looks amazing when you go up. Shelley's working on, there's posters that go around the phonetic way to say the phrases on the signs. And we're also looking at what's that classroom connection that we can do with it, but they look absolutely amazing. And it's a great visual reminder of the good things that are going on. The other piece that I'd probably highlight is we did a culture camp at Shackton on October 25th. I was able to participate in it. It was absolutely amazing. You know, we got to see some of the economic development that's going on out there. They have a greenhouse, and they're really looking at traditional Indigenous vegetation and, you know, working their way through traditional processes. They're constructing a massive new greenhouse out there. They were actually breaking ground and working on it when we were out there. And it was just, honestly, it was a great day overall. We were able to go out to the sweat lodge and hear about the traditions behind it, how it works. It was honestly, if you were able to spend that day out there, it was such a lovely day of connecting with the land and with others. It was very well designed, and a large credit goes to Shelley and her ISAs for putting that together. And there was good attendance. I would say probably close to 25 people. And we had people also come from Princeton as well. So really, really positive day.
Any questions?
I'm just, with, I don't know if you've, or if we've had, and I know we've talked about the, getting together with the chiefs. And I guess that's still an ongoing process for the LEAs, correct?
Yes.
And
I just wanted to say, we're just trying to find a date that will work for everyone. Our chiefs are so busy, there's so much consultation and other pieces going on. It's just difficult to find a date that works for everyone, but we've tried to doodle that kind of had limited success. So we think we're going to do the personal touch now. We'll reach out and we'll try to find a date. We're going to hopefully find one that works for all. And if we can't get one that works for all, we're going to do our best to make sure that it works for most.
And if worst case, it turns out they all happen to be at a central location somewhere that isn't Merritt or Princeton, I think we're open to traveling to wherever that is to make that happen, because sometimes they're at a regional meeting. And if we can capture half a day there, for us to travel is fine.
Yeah, we're trying to be as flexible as possible, because we know, the demands on the chief's time, but also the demands on your time as well. Just trying to make it work, but we're doing everything we can to find a date that'll work for everyone, because it's such a richer conversation if everyone is around the table. We had that great chiefs meeting in October, and it was wonderful just to touch base. 4 of our 5 chiefs were able to attend. So we're really hoping that we will all be able to meet together and find a date.
Thank you. Early learning and childcare.
Dylan, can you forward the link to Jane? She's having trouble getting on the Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we've sent it, we're working on it. We've sent it a few times now.
Okay.
We're just trying it another way.
Okay. Can you text Jane to let her know?
Yeah, we're texting with her.
Okay. Our next one is early learning. I have to say, Daniela is such a hard-working person in her position. She does an amazing job. She has a lovely, approachable, kind way about her. She's very data focused in what she does. And she really takes the position of, we're all in different points on our journey of learning about, early ed, as well as, how do we support using in data in our work. Our Strong Start programs are very strong across our district. We have great facilitators that coordinate those programs. They build lovely relationships in our community. And it's a really welcoming place that's not intimidating for parents. And, the fact that they're in our schools, not everyone is comfortable coming into a school. So I think it's a great way, when your child is between 2 and 5, where you can make that soft connection in the school. You feel comfortable being in there. And it also gives us an opportunity to learn about children before they enter kindergarten with us. So she's doing some really great work around our district. And we're just really appreciative of what she does and what she brings to the table and the support that she's able to provide. So.
Thank you. I think everyone's good here on this one.
Okay.
Which brings us then to your superintendent's report.
Oh, Dylan is going to display it on his end, and we'll pass it out. You'll notice it's a very robust document this time. Let me just bring up my copy so I can take a look at it.
You're pulling this up and you're on the screen. Yeah. But we
And Dylan,
I don't have the
Dylan-
report in electronic form.
I emailed it to you, Dylan. It's in the PDF in your email.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, we got John coming in, but not Jane.
She was there.
Okay, so Dylan will work on getting it on the screen for
Yeah,
our
he's
for
ready to
people
come.
that are tuning in. I mentioned at our last admin meeting how much we like to celebrate the good work that is happening in our schools. So our principals have risen to the challenge, and you'll notice that it's a longer document than normal, but it's absolutely wonderful to see all the great things that are going on in our schools. When we look at Collettville, they're really looking at building positive relationships in our K1 class. You know, how do we make that connection when they're first coming into us, and really make that first, you know, school connection really positive. Also, it was Indigenous Veterans Day as well as Remembrance Day ceremony. Our schools are doing a really good job honoring our veterans and really making that local connection to it. When we look at John Allison, they were able to bring in a STEM presentation. So this is really where you're looking at science, technology, engineering, and math. And these were actually kits that were brought in and facilitated, and the kids got to do hands-on learning activities. Also tells you a little bit about our safety procedures there, and professional development. You know, we have a lot of good things going on in our buildings. Diamondville, one of the things I like best about their entries is they always have one of the 7 grandfather teachings connected to their work. Our Division 2 and 3, we're learning about the significance of Diwali. So, you know, recognizing that we have a diverse population. And like a really good news is they received a grant of $195,000 to update and improve accessibility of their intermediate playground. So there's some really wonderful things happening with those pieces. Looking at MSS, you know, they provided some great pictures of different activities. If you're not a sports fan, the time of the year that we're hitting is our volleyball teams are just wrapping up. They had a really good season. Cross country athlete, one of them earned a spot at the provincial championships, and we're about to start basketball. They had a school-wide Battleween, which is a huge success, and they brought their different multi-age grade levels together. And there were smiles and laughter, and you can tell from the picture, just a great day. There was a science trip to Banfield Science Center. Grade 12 students had the opportunity to participate in the Literacy 12 assessment, which is a graduation requirement. You know, maybe not the most exciting thing for them to do, but, you know, it's one of the real world pieces is sometimes we have to have perseverance through different things. And then looking at representation at a leadership conference. They're doing some really great work at MSS. And then we are on to Nicola Canford. You know, some really great fun pieces going on there. You know, bannock making, you know, being involved in sports with our sash run, our Halloween, and just about all of our schools have been out to the pumpkin patch for elementary. For Merritt Central, lots of great activities going on. I'll just highlight a few of them for you. So looking at the literacy piece, one of the things that I like best about Natasha's leadership at Merritt Central, there is always a focus on learning, and she's in there in the trenches with her teachers, helping them with those pieces of what does the learning look like? How do we support those moving forward? They do a breakfast club every morning or not every morning, they do a breakfast club at Central Elementary, and it's all volunteer for our teachers that are there. That's not part of their assigned supervision. They give of their time, and they're really making great connections with the kids in that morning time, as well as it really speaks to that piece about connection and meeting people's needs where they're at. Was John and Jane able to get on?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Okay. Looking at Princeton Secondary, for a small high school, they are mighty in terms of doing their field trips. They're committed to their sports with their volleyball. We have a lot of dedicated parents that help with transportation for that. And Bill really models the way as the principal, coaching cross country. So, he's giving his time. He really has the skin in the game with the piece. And you know what, it's great to see that our kids connecting in the community with different events that they're doing. Vermilion Forks, hands-on science projects, making borax bouncy balls. They had an author visit around historical fiction. And obviously Halloween and pumpkin patch and carving and all those wonderful things that's going on in the building. And then Daniela's early learning and childcare update, showing different field trips and activities that are taking place across our classrooms in Strong Start, and our other pieces that we're doing there. And then Merit Bench, a number of activities that happened, Halloween parade, the annual pumpkin roll, and then Remembrance Day assemblies. And we have an entry from Skides, which we don't normally get, which I think is a really positive addition. Dan, our principal, was able to go down to Lions Peak, which is one of our academy schools, and he was able to share some of those pictures from Halloween, and actually being able to see some of the kids that we work with in that distance context.
Very cool.
And then CLC, I need to give credit to Adrienne and our teachers there. They're doing a great job of building connections along with their support staff as well, building connections with kids. We know that if you have strong relationships, we are more likely to see regular attendance, and not just being confined to the classroom, but what can we do to really get out of the four walls of the classroom and make those connections in the community. There's nothing like a field trip to build a different level of connection than just, sitting in the desk or the table or the chair, but really making those connections. And I need to give credit to my administrators. They really stepped up and did a great job with the report this month. And I think it really highlights the great work that's going on in our district. And honestly, my report is always my favorite part of board meeting because I get to share the great work that's going on.
Excellent, Courtney.
Oh, and Dave, I have the answer to your question because Misty texted me. ProVenture is run by our school counselors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Courtney. It's great to see all that work that we see happening on the positive side in all our schools for the month. It's always nice to get that as a push up because sometimes we're slogging through some other stuff.
And you know what? I think it's really important to balance it, at the governance and, management level. It's not all good news stories that we deal with, but there's so many good news stories that are coming out of our school and really reflecting the hard work of our teachers and admin. So, yeah, I'm really proud of our admin with what they were able to put together.
Not seeing any questions from John, so we'll move on to the school district and school-based website RFP. If you remember at the last meeting, they asked for an RFP to be pulled together for the redesign, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Richardson.
Thanks, Chair Swan. Yeah, in your board package is a copy of the request for proposal that staff has put together. It includes an introduction, project overview, key features of the desired website solution, the scope of the work, which is website design and development, content management system, security and privacy, multilingual and multi-school capabilities, training and support, and hosting and maintenance, as well as the proposal requirements. And the several requirements for the vendor, just basic information, approach and timeline, features and functionality, a cost estimate, references, and a support and maintenance plan are also being requested. In the proposal, should the board approve it, we would publish it right away, asking for responses to be submitted by November 29th, at which time we would make a selection shortly thereafter.
So just one question for myself, and I'm probably under security and privacy. So the website will be hosted on our server, so it will be remaining within Canada, or is that an option for whoever? Just making sure from a privacy end that wherever that is, if it's not hosted on our server, it still stays within Canada, so we don't have problems with things like the Patriot Act in the States.
Yeah, so as one of the conditions, under number 3, security and privacy, it does say ensure all websites comply with relevant privacy laws. So it would be a requirement for the provider to keep our information within Canada. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
So, Leah,
Just a bookend around budgets. Are you putting any information in the RFP for the proposals to be within a certain budget? Have we done research on what a typical budget would look like for our size of our district?
We haven't put in there an actual dollar frame.
Yeah.
I think we want to hear what the vendor would do for us, rather
Okay.
than if we provide the dollar amount, then we may
Yeah.
kind of get an overpromise, under-deliver kind of thing.
Sure, yeah,
versus-
it's just
yeah.
internally, like
Yeah.
we have a bookend.
We
for
do,
us.
we do have some budgeted dollars set aside, that I don't think I would want to disclose in public
No,
forum.
no,
Yeah.
no, just in
Yeah.
terms of,
Yeah.
are you sure responsibility and a little bit of research on
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Got it,
Does that answer your question?
you're on it.
Okay,
so we do need a motion to move forward with the RFP, moved by trustee Rayner, seconded by trustee Kent Laidlaw. Any other questions on this?
Oh, there's John.
Anyone opposed? So that is carried. We now move on to our quarterly report, which I'm sure is going to be as uplifting as the superintendent's report.
Yeah.
well, that is a tough act to follow, let me tell you. We could talk about people or numbers. I wonder. In your board package is a copy of the quarterly financial update that I also have here on the screen as well. So Q1 represents the period July 1st through September 30th. Covering off it, not a bad overall, not bad. If you look at the grand total, we're 16% the budget. There are several items within this particular quarter, because it marks the first 3 months of the year, but it's also it's 1 month of our school year. And so most of our operating costs happen between September and June, but we do have operating costs that do happen through the summer to a lesser extent. And so that's the context for this. Also, want you to be aware, we do have a lot of front-end loaded costs in September, October, November. Probably the biggest hitters on that are our software licenses and our insurance. So we'll see software licensing and insurance spike, and then that's going to level out starting in November, December. But looking at salaries and benefits, overall salaries and benefits are 14% to budget. But if we just take a quick glance down here, we can see teachers are 12% to budget. Now, if we were thinking in the context of a 10-month school year, we would think, well, 10% is our budget. But we do have some summer learning that does take place throughout the summer. So there are some added costs, but we are a little bit heavy. We're at 12%, for teachers. If you look at principals, we're 24% spent to budget. Now, our principal, vice principal group are paid 12 months of the year. And so we want to see, close to 25% to budget on that. Support staff, we're at 17% to budget. This time of year, having, as I said, we do have support staff working through the summer, our maintenance staff. But the bulk of our work has taken place September to June. So we have 1 month of, at full tilt. 17% is a little on the high side. 13% would be a nicer number. So we are a little bit heavy there. We are aware of some increased custodial costs that came through the summer months that we're looking into. Also some secretarial hours that we're also looking into there for the support staff. Our education assistants are at 8% the budget, so we are under budget. We do have some vacancies at Merritt Secondary School, and so explaining why we are under budget. Other professionals are 23% the budget. Now, again, this group is paid 12 months of the school year, so we do want to see that in closer to the 25% range. Our replacement costs, as of the end of September, are 9%. So this is a good number. 10% is kind of your ideal. Now that's just getting the school year off the ground. We're probably going to see that change quite a bit in October and November. So we'll see that on the future report. TTOC costs, I would say, are up based on information that we've collected since then. But based on 1 month of school, we're at 9% to budget. Replacement costs for our QP staff, we're at 12% the budget. So some of these replacements would have occurred over the summer for such things as vacation and those kinds of things. And so we would realize a higher number for this replacement budget. Our total salaries overall are 14% the budget. Benefits are at 12% the budget. Benefits are going to be a little bit lighter in the first part of the school year, and then they're going to increase as we go along. For example, for employees that have maxed out on EI and CPP, those costs aren't being realized right now. In the new year, we will likely have new rates for benefits that will be applied. And so those types of things will start to come into effect as the year rolls forward. In the area of services and supplies, we're 39% the budget. Now, as I mentioned before, when you look at 39% and we're one month into the school year, that could be quite alarming to see that number. But we do know that there are a lot of front-end loaded costs like software costs, which would be recognized in here. And that would be a primary reason why. And we would have seen a similar story being told last year at this time. Student transportation. So this is the cost of our running our regular bus routes, but also our field trips. 1 month into the school year, we're 6% the budget. So pretty good for 1 month. Professional development travel, we are at 18%. Rentals and leases, we're at 25%, which is where we'd want to be for 3 months of the school year, representing 1/4 of the costs. Our dues and fees are at 41% of budget. Also recognizing that a lot of those costs happen at the beginning of the school year. And so we should see that normalize as the year carries out. And you can see in your report that I've marked that with an asterisk. And that just does represent that there are a lot of front-end loaded costs in there. Same with insurance, we're at 31%. We'll see that number continue to rise. As of September, not all of our insurance costs were in, so we're going to see some of those trickle in October and November. Supplies is at 22% of budget, and utilities is at 18%. So total for services and supplies, we're at 26% for the first quarter of the year. Generally speaking, over the last 2 years, it's been heavy, and that's kind of been a similar story, that we've told at this table, is that spending has been heavy. We've been hit with inflation over the last 2 years. Granted, it has leveled off a bit this year, but that doesn't mean that the costs have eased off either. So that is definitely something to be mindful of. I would say that for the first quarter of the year, this is quite similar to what we would have experienced last year at this time. And I kind of feel the last 2 years, this last year in particular, are a better representation of what our new normal is. If you're thinking of trending, like I typically like to think in a 3 to 5 year trend just to see. But if we look back 5 years, you got the flood, you got the pandemic, there's just all kinds of macroeconomic factors that really don't make it reasonable to trend over that period of time. So to look at last year, I think is a really good benchmark. And so that is the Q1 financial report. We do update this and watch it on a monthly basis. And but happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Question. So the last 2 years have been heavy, inflation, it's gonna level out. What does that mean for the next 2 years? Leveling out, are we gonna see a decrease in things that are obvious on this paper? Like,
No, I think when I say leveling out,
Status.
I'm talking about inflation itself.
got it,
So we will be able to, I'm not suggesting that the costs are gonna now go down.
No.
Because I don't think they're gonna go down. But I think proportionately, you know, they're not gonna increase as much,
got it,
right?
got
You
it.
know, because we're hit with inflation, you know, 1 year, 3.9%, 6.75%. 4%, like over a 3-year period, we had 22% inflation, which is quite significant. You know, whereas this year, we're looking at more like 3%, which is something that I think we're a little bit more accustomed to. Yeah.
Trustee Kennedy.
So you mentioned those areas that we were heavy in, the teachers' custodial insurance, licensing fees. Do we have a plan to deal with those overages? Do we have like a?
Yeah, so what we do, since we've put the annual budget into place, so it would have been presented in May, June. Since then, we are actively keeping track of the information that we've become aware of that affect, number one, revenue, but then also affect expenses. It could be a macro factor at a ministry provincial level, but it could be more of a micro factor, which is internal and something that we become aware of internally. And so we are actively keeping a list of those costs as we head towards the amended budget. And there are significant costs that we will have to deal with. You know, in September, we presented the multi-year financial plan. And, the writing is on the wall that the accumulated operating surplus is, it's coming down to the policy threshold where we need to be mindful of that. And we're going to have to take steps to address that. And the cost pressures that we have this year are no exception. And as we get into the amended budget, we are going to see some significant costs that we do need to consider, because the Q1 financial report does show that teacher costs are up. And so that's something that we really need to take a look at as we consider the amended budget.
Yeah, just a reminder on that, since Mr. Richardson mentioned we did project using up more of our surplus. So we are projecting a deficit using our surplus to match that off. But that also means these numbers can't continue to go up each year. We actually are going to have to find $500,000 to $1 million next year in savings in order, simply because that reserve fund is no longer there. We've been spending it with intent to get it down within the policy threshold, but now to maintain it there, to make sure we have those dollars, we're going to have to be looking at that pretty critically this next budget year, because we didn't hear a lot from government during the election campaigns that they're going to be pouring vast sums of money into education, and we're not the only district that's looking at that. When I talk to board chairs around the province, they're all looking at where they're going to have to make reductions, and their secretary of treasurers are looking at that. So we have to be mindful of that. We are going to have to be looking at that this next budget year for sure. Any other questions? We move to policies for approval.
Thanks, Trace. So in your board package is policies for approval. We have 4 policies that have gone before the policy committee. Have been circulated for feedback and are now coming back to trustees for approval. So that is policy 3.10, student expectations, policy 3.30, student fees and deposits, policy 3.31, financial hardship, and policy 3.70, co-curricular and extracurricular activities.
I would like to move them all at once unless there's one that people feel they need to spend more time on. And I think,
We're voting to send these out. for
No,
review.
no, they've
No,
all
they've
gone,
been out.
they've all gone out.
So no one's-
I understand no one's come back
Yeah.
and said there's an issue with, so that's why I would like to be able to move them as a package. So I'd like a mover and a seconder for all four, moved by trustee Hoisington, seconded by trustee Jepson. Any discussion on any of them? As I say, they've all gone out to all the partners and rights holders. Nothing has come back on these ones, so. I don't see anyone opposed, so they're carried.
Work policy 3.
And then we have two policies that staff are bringing to trustees in consideration of a temporary change. When I say temporary change, it's in context to the policy review that's being done with the board's consultant. So we would expect these policies to undergo a formal review by the policy committee. But we do feel there's reasons to bring this forward for a sooner change. And I'll take you through those right now. In your board package is policy 1004.1, public use of facilities. What we've done, and in the board package, you'll see that well, this policy and these fees have not been updated since 2013, so it has been quite some time. What staff have done is put together changes, factoring in using Statistics Canada inflation as the medium for making those changes. And so the changes being reflected in there represent the increases based on Stats Canada, but also cost recovery. And when I say cost recovery, we're talking about when we're renting and or booking out our facilities on the weekend. That is where we incur the greatest amount of cost because the cleaning of the facilities is at an overtime rate and the costs of that are considerable. And so we've adjusted those not on an inflationary basis, but we've adjusted those on a cost recovery basis so that the district is recovering the costs that are that it incurs for booking out those facilities. And just to be clear, these prices are not such that we're generating a profit from them. We're looking to recover our costs. Yeah.
Trustee Laidlaw.
So I'm looking at the numbers and some of them seem to jump significantly, like from $20 to $30 to $80. But then if I scroll down, I get one that goes from $79 down to $17. Is that a typo or am I not understanding how this works?
It's based on what it costs to so in this particular instance, and like because you're looking at category C,
Yeah.
Which is our for-profit agencies that are wanting to use our facilities.
Right.
So in that case, you know, they are paying an admin fee of $40. And
On
then
top of what's listed?
yeah, so they pay an admin fee. And then they pay an hourly charge, which is listed below. And then that is how that fee is determined.
I guess
Yeah.
I'm just not understanding how on the Monday to Friday, the prices all seem to go up, and then on the weekend holidays, they all seem to go down.
No, it's
No, it's the other way around.
It's higher. I
Yeah.
think what needs to show in the box is not say the 1720.
Okay.
The 1726 is the hourly rate. Plus
This
the
is
hourly
on-
custodian,
Plus
but
the hourly
you're not.
custodian.
Okay, so these
Yeah.
are add-ons
Yeah.
essentially, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's the way it was before, but the hourly rate that was charged for custodians before did not represent what it actually cost. Yeah, So we index the hourly rates by inflation, but we index the custodial cost by the cost of what it costs to provide that service. Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing for me is that I'm not familiar with the old one, so I don't really know what I'm looking at as far as.
So, yeah, so we,
incentives change or-
yeah, you know, and I considered putting that in the package, but I thought it might be confusing, but we did present the old policy at the last board meeting.
Okay,
So that was in there, yeah,
okay.
but
Yes, so if I look at bench as a gym gymnasium fee, that gym is the quarter of the size of most of the other gyms in the district. It is, so I'm in my mind going, why would we be charging the same amount for that gym as we would for the full-size gym at Central?
because it cost, you see, you have to pay the employee the same
Yeah.
amount of money per hour.
Flat.
Yeah.
Even if it's smaller, it's okay, at least the
Yeah.
minimum to get.
Probably it will
But I-
take less time to clean the
Yeah.
Merritt Bench gym versus say Central.
Still have to have the hourly.
Yeah,
You have to have the hourly rate, and I know we have our hourly rate, our minimum in the contract. Um, the piece I'm wondering about on that front end of the hourly rate, is that actually covering, you know, if a gym at MSS is used more, is it actually getting us close to where it means we're gonna have to resurface the floor at PSS or MSS sooner?
Yeah.
Does that $17.26 an hour at the front end, or $46 plus the other two, because you got the administrative fee, the custodial fee, is that hourly rate actually covering for the wear and tear on the building?
so staff did discuss that, and to factor in the replacement costs of flooring would put these rates even more and possibly into a place where it's just not. It just would, like, to put it in context, you know, if you've rented facilities in the city of Merritt lately, the affordability of it is crazy. And, you know, and with this, we felt this was significant enough as it was. Will the policy committee want to factor that in? That's certainly something that I think we should look at, but we thought, at least because this is an interim, short-term solution, we should at least just be recovering our costs for today. And then considering, you know, what should we be doing on a long-term basis?
And I think just from like a community perspective, if we price it out of
Mhm.
the possibility for, you know, like kids youth groups like Girl Guides of Canada or Scouting, things like that, to be able to use it, then everybody kind of uses it. And there's that community angle that we want to make sure that we're supporting.
Well, that's why we tried to keep it lower in A and B if they were involving students, as opposed to
For profit.
someone using it for profit. That we don't want to subsidize. And I guess I'm okay with on temporary, but my concern is if the prices at the Civic Center in Merritt have gone so high, if we all of a sudden see people drifting to us. And we're subsidizing something that's for profit as opposed to something that's truly community, that would be my concern. That we should make sure we look at when we actually look at it. Doing this as a temporary one, but on that full-time piece, being aware of that we don't want that to inadvertently hurt us. John?
Yeah, these are temporary changes until the policy committee looks at them. I'm gonna call the question and make a motion that we approve these. And they're only in place until if and when the policy committee approves them. And I will trust the district staff's recommendations on the costing right now. But I'll make the motion.
Seconded by trustee Jepson. All those in favor? Carry.
The second policy being brought to trustees today for a temporary change is that pertaining to policy 202.5. This is the signing officers. So the language in the existing policy I actually think there's a typo in there or something from the last time it was reviewed, but right now the policy provides the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer to spend up to $5,000. And then in 1.2 of the old policy, it says that anything over $2,000 needs to be signed off by a trustee and a secretary treasurer or assistant secretary treasurer. And it just doesn't logically flow. So what we've done in this particular policy is just expanding that out so that we're moving forward on the footprint or the threshold of $5,000. And so for what we're recommending, and then again, this is a temporary change, until the policy committee can review this. We do think that this is emergent in nature because it has an operational impact on how we process the payment of checks throughout the school district. So for non-payroll printed checks or electronic funds transfer payments, when the face value of the payment is less than $5,000, the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer are authorized to sign printed checks or EFT payments. When the face value of the payment is greater than $5,000 and is represented by individual invoices that are each worth less than $5,000, the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer are authorized to sign the printed checks or the EFT payments. 1.3 says when the face value of the payment is greater than $5,000 and is represented by individual invoices where at least one invoice is greater than $5,000, the board chair or trustee appointed by the chair and one member of the administration consisting of the secretary treasurer or assistant secretary treasurer are authorized to sign printed checks and or process EFT payments, but with no more than one signature being computer generated. That change aligns with, I believe, what the current policy is trying to accomplish. Number two is in reference to payroll printed checks. There were no changes that we are recommending because in the existing policy, the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer are authorized to sign payroll printed checks or EFT payments for any amount. And that hasn't changed, and we're not recommending any changes. But number three, for added clarity, we added this in for municipal and provincial utilities, just to be clear that that the secretary treasurer and assistant secretary treasurer are authorized to sign printed checks and process EFT payments for any amount with no more than one signatures being computer generated. And so those are the changes that we're recommending on a temporary basis until the policy is formally reviewed. We feel that these changes will align us with what the existing policy, I believe, is trying to accomplish. And this will give us the basis for which, from an audit perspective, will ensure that we are complying with the board's policy. Any questions about those changes?
Are there any more you might require for 3? Now, I think we're gonna look at them later, but there's some payments we're always making to Revenue Canada, for example, like on deductions, which are, no, they're not a payroll check, but related to that. So there's ones that we're obligated to pay with the federal government. So we said municipal and provincial utilities, which is specific, but there's other payments, we have to make them by law. So I think it would be good that you had that flexibility too, that if it's EI and CCP, it's just being paid.
Yeah.
It's a statutory requirement.
I think that would be good. Yeah.
I motion that we follow the recommendation of Secretary Treasurer.
Standard.
Second.
Anyone opposed? Carried.
Good catch on that $2,000.
Yeah. Thanks.
Plus inflation.
And I don't think we've had any correspondence, so that will move us to the student trustee reports.
Jane is having technology issues, so she asked me just to share the question that she had asked the student trustees to reflect on. So in honor and recognition of the passing of Murray St. Clair, we ask that you reflect on your own path with truth and reconciliation. What has been impactful for you as a student? And what opportunities or learning would you like to see more of in school and why?
I'll go first. In school, we've learned a lot about residential schools and the horrible things that Canada has done to Indigenous people. This knowledge has been spread out to me in every class that I can remember, and rightfully so. All these classes have let me understand what we have done in the past and what we should never do in the future. This is great that they are teaching my generation about residential schools so extensively, because we will be the next leaders and we need to know what we are trying to avoid from happening again. I would like us to learn more about other conflicts as well between Canada and Indigenous people. I know that there has been other conflicts and I would like to learn about them, because I think that would be helpful to know.
Very good stuff. Excellent. Should we clap?
For me, the teachers had a great impact in our knowledge of First Peoples, especially for me since I moved from a different country. I remember one time I was sitting in the English room and this picture. I asked my teacher who that was, and she told me that she was a girl who went to a residential school and survived. It is great to see the teachers involved in exposing us in any Indigenous related events like smudging in the courtyard, assemblies, and inviting First Nations people to come talk or perform in our school. It really is helpful for us students to learn about it because we are in fact the hope for the future and we could help in stopping history to repeat itself. In terms of learning opportunities, I would love to learn more about the struggles and other conflicts that we weren't informed of.
Excellent.
Very good. Good stuff.
Future leaders tomorrow.
So we're coming with trustee reports. John,
John wanted to make a comment and then I have one after him.
okay.
Sure, I just want to thank the students for your very insightful, thoughtful responses to that question. Murray St. Clair will go down as one of the most important Indigenous Canadians this country has ever had. And I think that I just want you to know how honored I am to hear your responses as young Canadians. And it is a very tough time for a lot of Indigenous people, maybe not fully understanding what happened in the history and probably wanting a lot more knowledge as you are requesting. So I'm hoping that young people together will find the courage and time and the energy to really search out answers to questions you have. And as we're all educators here, don't be afraid to start reading and continue opening your horizons, and that's a great way to do that. But I want to acknowledge you too for your amazing responses. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add that Mrs. Kempston just wanted to extend her thanks, and she's very proud of your answers. I thought you did an amazing job answering that question, and as superintendent, it gives me hope that our staff is doing a really good job with this work that is hard. And the fact that our students are so open to hearing about the history and wanting to learn more. So thank you very much for your responses. Very eloquent in how you answered that question.
Excellent work. I think we all reflect on the tough work it is, and we can't get to reconciliation without the truth. And you just touched on part of that truth, or the truth that wasn't told that still needs to be told.
Sure, I'll start with PAC reports for myself. I met with Diamond Bell a couple weeks ago now. They still had low numbers for their PAC, but they are able to have forum and do some work for the school, so they got some fundraisers set up. They're really excited about their Christmas concert that's I think it's early December. It might even be November that they're doing it, but they're moving to a evening performance instead of during school, so hopefully that allows a lot more parents and families to be able to. That's the biggest thing they were talking about, and then unfortunately I had to miss Central PAC last night, so don't have anything from them quite yet.
Great, so our PSS PAC, we had the week after our last board meeting, so I'm a little out of date. We were supposed to have another PAC meeting yesterday, but that one's been moved to December. Essentially, the last PAC meeting, we held the AGM, so Aaron Williams is president, Don Graves is VP, and Katrina Russell is the treasurer. We do still have a vacant secretary position, so hopefully we can get some more parents participating because it's been sort of the same group of people for a little while. PAC is also running a hockey pool as a fundraiser on behalf of the athletics department. It's already started and it will run through till April 18th, so pick your teams. The student-led conferences were a couple weeks ago. They went really well. It was a good turnout. They had lots of parents coming in, meeting with the teachers, meeting the students, walking them through some of the things they do and some of their plans for the year and for the future. And then also tomorrow, the PSS Grade 9 Youth Conference is happening at Rockridge Canyon, so actually exciting.
Excellent. So I attended both bench and MSS. Last meeting I reported on the new president for bench, and the new president is Stephanie Johnson for MSS. The PAC and the parents who do grad were very appreciative of the work that you did. There's money available for grad from the Thompson-Nicoll Regional District, but you need a society number in order to do that. So by utilizing our district society number, that will help have those dollars flow through. I also know the school's been talking about lack of storage space in the schools, and what are some possibilities, particularly with grad, because they're trying to accumulation year after year, so the next grad doesn't have to purchase it. And yet we also know at MSS, outside storage tends to get broken into, so but it's a piece they're looking at, as well as how they can partner on pieces of that. Quite a bit for both schools was also covered in the superintendent's report. The other piece was 24 science students went to Banfield again this year, which was really great to see that week-long learning happening there.
I think one of our student trustees went, so I was going to request maybe that she give her presentation around what.
Yes, excellent.
There's a terrible flood there. That's the update in Banfield too,
Yes.
right? Right.
And then you saw some of the in the report from the superintendent, some of the pieces for MSS for the Remembrance Day ceremony. This year they had their own honor guard as well, which was pretty moving to see that happening within the school, and really positive things from some of the veterans about that. And with that, the other piece they're looking at is having another registered support animal in the school, so they're starting that consultation process. And over to you.
So great. There's so much great stuff happening. I feel like we're rushed to say all this really cool stuff. So thank you, Superintendent Lawrence, also for this really good update. Like Superintendent Lawrence said, there's so much happening, and I don't even know. I hope I can get through my list because it's a lot. But we should start out with Leah at the Science Bob Fair at VFB. I want to thank Principal Batts for inviting me up to participate in balloon car making. Did our car win? No. What, do I have a lot of learning to do in engineering? Yes, I do. But I will just tell you once again, the hardest working parents and some awesome educators were there to give these wonderful heartfelt reports, like they're raising money and they're doing good things with the funds, and there's soup fundraisers and wreath fundraisers, and the book fair was like $3,000 success. These are magical people, like they raise money like nobody's business. They're bringing in the Princeton posse, not just for their stick handling skills, but also their reading skills. So they're reading with kids and they're in their jerseys, and it's just so cool. I've got a demonstration of their Facebook page up. It is absolutely chock block full. So if you want a few other things of what they're doing, because their model for collaboration, their model for a welcoming environment. I got also invited up to the pumpkin pitch. You know what that is? It's where you smash your pumpkins. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and then I came up and I bought some pumpkins because they did a pumpkin fundraiser right at the school. So did I have to go to Kermis or somewhere else? No, I went straight to the Vermilion Forks people and I got myself a pumpkin. So I'm just saying, they brought Wild Safe in to talk about how bears and things, that's not good for the pumpkins on the front porch, okay? We gotta take care of our pumpkins, not let them rot and all these things. So they're doing so much, I can't even believe it. So also November 28th, guess where our PAC meeting's gonna be? Copper Pit Restaurant. These guys are doing it, I'm really telling you. So they're really looking at their budgets too, and they did understand about busing, and they're trying to modify fun ski trips. So maybe from one place, they might look at another place. It could be cheaper. They're and then an annual camp they have to look at as well. They're gonna fund classrooms. So they have this opportunity where they put out to teachers if they would like a classroom enrichment, so it goes back to kids. So yeah, they apply to PAC to be a part of this, and it could help fund things for the classroom. So it's at hand how crazy good everything is going, and that's my report. Over to you, Trustee Rayner.
You just gotta take it up a notch.
Okay.
That's
You're up. You're up.
Easy. Yeah, JA, with VFE is, we have they have quite the connection of, because the STEM day that they had, they also split the time with John Allison, and they have these cool little robot mice or whatever they are. And
Did you go there?
Nah, I missed it, but no. So, but they're actually buying some for the school, which would be really cool. A lot of community support at the school through the posse as well, coming to read. They have time in the gym with them and book reading and all that. They also have a lot of community support with Princeton Literacy, also Princeton Family Services, doing after school work. They had a really good Remembrance Day, and they actually said the kids were quiet for a minute.
Aww.
Now, they did bribe them with candy. It was just after Halloween, but pretty good, right? I think that's pretty cool. And then they have Kids Kitchen. They made zucchini bread. They have a small grant. They get seniors in there to help with it, but they got to go through criminal checks and all that kind of stuff. And they're getting some Waco Weyerhaeuser is donating some money to them to get some new rugs for their classrooms because they get worn out pretty quickly. You know, we're all playing around with the ground. Oh yeah, they're built, they're running around, right? And yeah, so it was really good. And they got lots of raffles coming up for the Christmas. Yeah, it's just a really cool school. Go ahead.
Okay, so going to Nicola Camford met on the 4th. Neither Bert or myself were able to attend, but this pack drove it themselves, so nice to see. Pretty outgoing group. Some of the things that they were discussing was there at the previous PAC meeting discussed about some fundraisers that they thought they should do, and then they stopped themselves and then wanted to consider actually spending some money before they started raising more money. So they had some brainstorming ideas about places where they might like to spend some money. So a sports day, friendship bench, looking at getting the kids into some movie nights, maybe less about making money and more just about giving kids the movie experience there locally in the community. So that was really good. And then the big one is obviously Nicola Canford's well known for their bonanza. It happens in December. So their next board meeting is December 2nd, and that's where the big plans for the bonanza are gonna be done. So yeah, lots of good stuff happening in Nicola Canford.
Sorry.
Your turn.
No,
I'm sorry.
need to get this in. I'll stomp like a little straight shooter. But there was also some discussion because we had some, we had our elected board, but we also had some guests there. And there was, there's been discussion about the library operation at the, so they actually put out a letter to all the parents, because what the librarian is trying to do is, you know, if the kids come in to borrow a book, they're allowed 2 books, but they're going to return them. So they're trying to get kids to respect for property and learning about, you know, respecting assets or books and to bring them back. So there was a little more, there was public discussion instead of bringing it to the school. So they're working on that and it should be resolved. Thank you.
Really do actually.
Okay, your turn now, Jane.
Actually, I just
Then we'll have to go back to Dave.
I know, right? I just wanted to thank Sophia, because she came out and joined me to lay down the wreath for the remembrance.
Right.
So I was really appreciative of that. I'd love, hopefully, maybe next year to also have them announce the student trustees' names. I know they just announced mine and you were there too.
Yeah.
But it was really nice to have the company and I appreciate that.
Excellent.
We can make sure we discuss that with both legions, just
Yeah, I
make
know
sure that
that it
they
was a little
just don't
last
mention the
minute sort
trustee.
of thing, but just as a thought going forward to next year. Awesome. And that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, sure.
And the branch report.
Right. So part of our commitment to our professional development takes place not just here in these lively discussions, but we also meet in regional branch meetings. And so at our last branch meeting, which took place in Revelstoke on October 4th and 5th, we had an opportunity to look at some professional development from the local. So we took a wonderful tour of how they have bridged both community services and schooling, and it was just absolutely phenomenal, the type of work that they're doing with community partnerships and how they're rolling out their early years daycare and all of their learning centers. And so it was fabulous. So we did a number of things regarding BCPC as well in bargaining. And we had another topic, which was how can we be good partners in terms of working with our MLAs in advance of the voting, post-election, and then moving forward. So sort of 3 topics that we go out of town and we work as a regional Thompson Okanagan branch. We, of course, represent School District 58, Nicholas and Milkameen, and we're learning from 9 other branches in terms of best practices, and we're coming together in our strategic mission, which is Thompson Okanagan branches, we're better together, and we share mission, vision, and values, and we work cohesively as what I'd like to think is maybe one of the most strong and vibrant branches in the entire province. So part of what we said earlier in the board work was, we're not just going to go to these meetings and then say nothing about them when we return. And then we're not just going to go to a meeting one and done. I also see John's hand up, and then not have action items for the board as we move forward. John, would you like to join us here now?
No, I'd like to do a PAC reports.
Oh, John, I apologize, John.
You know what, Rainier? I'm never gonna forget.
I'm sorry, John.
I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I actually, Skies is tonight. So it's happening right now. I'll have to update that later. And I'm actually looking for a volunteer to attend Collettville's PAC tomorrow night, because I'm in Vancouver. But so I don't have a report for either anyway, but I I'm looking for a volunteer.
What time, John?
Thank you.
What time, John?
Oh, 6:30.
You say 6:30?
6:30.
Nice pack report.
Really good.
Thanks, Rainier.
Save the best to last.
Right? So John, feel free to, and Courtney or Jane, to dive in terms of the branch learning. We also met as a committee of the whole. I should ask that your district did meet. So we tried to utilize every hour of our time away together, building best practices and our work plans moving forward. So with those very brief topics that I just sort of kind of like blasted at y'all, our commitment here in terms of action was around both BC, PC, bargaining, information gathering, and what the information we got as a result of that. And moving forward, our action item, where we looked at what our role is as a board, as a branch, and as a personal trustee in terms of our best practices when it comes to elections. And so we committed to post-election, reaching out to both locally elected MLAs to begin the relationship building and the continuous work around reminding them about how education needs to really be the forefront of our work together, because it was not on either of their platforms. But they did respond to us that they were definitely committed. So Chair Swan has reached out to the MLA on the north end, and I've reached out to the MLA, Donegal Wilson, on the south end. And as a formal note, we are sending out our congratulations on behalf of the board. And we've also committed to inviting them to some of our events. So this might need to be an action item moving forward for our executive assistant, Simone Chenoweth, so that we aren't forgetting to invite them to really important events within our own district. And that they, from a branch point of view, we've also invited them to our next branch meeting in the spring in Penticton. Okay, so that is some of those highlights, and would you be willing to share?
And I have had an initial meeting with, well, PCMLA elect now, because they just got sworn in, I think yesterday, Tuesday, yeah. So we did have that initial meeting, which was good. To get up to speed on things. We also have to take a look at the, once we have a Minister of Education, because Cabinet hasn't been formed yet, is look at those mandate letters to see how we can move those pieces. And then also be mindful as co-governors, we co-govern with the party that's been elected, and knowing that both of our MLAs will likely be in a critical role of some sort within government. So lots of weaving to do with that, but it was good to sit down with MLA left to talk about education issues and to talk about the letter that we had sent out to all candidates and be able to have that discussion. So that was good to start building that relationship even before they got sworn in. So.
From bargaining, what we learned from BCPC, our board has had to take a fairly informed decision around where we are in conflict moving forward. So we just really wanted to be a part of the process and know how our roles are or could be perceived as being in conflict. So we did pretty in-depth session with Tammy Selinsky, advising boards on best practices and sort of a red light, orange light, green light. When you're in conflict, and they devised this manual, which you've all received, so that we can be informed about our obligations moving forward. And the learning on the land, I just wanted to share with you on Friday night, we were able to be a part of a fairly great presentation. Jade, she was very interactive. She was a community connector, very well informed. She herself immigrated from the UK, and her work with rights holders and wonderful elders on the land has brought her to this place which she calls of delicate privilege, and she performed an opportunity where we could get together, and she showcased how the school district and the community, their commitment to learning on the land within the Revelstoke area with elders at the forefront and all the medicines. And then she introduced her other partner, Tomo Fuji Mamera. And he talked about the learning on the land from an avalanche point of view and a snow and weather point of view. So they highlighted how their local area is taking both history, because they talked about weather, climate events and weather, how it can be an information piece, and how Jade was committed to taking, the elders and making it a very big part of their community going forward. So anything else you can add to that piece?
No, I think we came up with some pieces that we're going to move to that weren't seen as emergent for provincial council, but we will move forward to PC STA AGM.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's some funding pieces there we need to be having that discussion with government on.
So that is a small synopsis, but if you weren't at this branch, we would hope that we could get together and maybe keep that learning going forward if there's lots of gaps in what we just
I'm
did.
still trying to figure out how we put the bouldering wall that the 3-year-olds have into our new child space here.
Would you be able to also share Alan Shell, who is the chair of Revelstoke?
The chair of Revelstoke.
And he was a big proponent of that collaborative school and community center.
Yeah, so he
That's
was,
the tour we went on.
that was the tour we went on. There was a time in government where instead of following, they have a book of building standards that says if you have X number of students, you get 4 square feet for a gym. And if you have more than that, you get, 8 square feet. It's very, and what they did in Revelstoke was they were able to go out to tender, and instead of going with that standard building was what could someone build for a particular 40-something million dollars worth of funding. So they were able to put in university-sized gyms. And then at the elementary school, we're able to put in a secondary-sized gym, which helped them with tournaments. Similar to us having access to MBIT, they were also able to get an extra 15% that government put in through community consultation, which is why they have a theater which is integrated into the school, which is why they have a trampoline club in the elementary school.
Nurses, doctors.
Nurses, doctors, so for
Counselors.
prenatal, the doctors actually come to the school, to the elementary school. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of pieces that's been very holistic in joining pieces together. And it was interesting on part of the tour, Alan was saying, I'm standing on the municipal land, you're standing on the school board land, but we just erased all the lines when we built this. That what mattered was it was good for the community. So it's good to see that cooperation at a municipal level too, that you're just able to do that.
Very cool.
We've also noted that since Revelstoke did that as a pilot, government has, in 13 years, has not offered that opportunity to any other school district. So, which is too bad, because it was really out of the box thinking, got a lot greater value, and built what the community needed, both in terms of education and the community. So, and I think they're at year 13 now.
Wonderful, wonderful learning for our board and our branch. So just want to thank Superintendent or Secretary Treasurer Richardson around bringing this forward as sort of our work and our commitment to best practices. Everyone?
Should I do a PC report in here or in closed?
PCs here.
So I went to the provincial council meeting, which is 60 board members that get together. And for our group here, you'll notice we get the email out, which will have a synopsis of what went down, more of what I'm going to tell you now if you want to go more depth. But major points was a lot of the motions for oral report reports and tracking of resolutions and AGM tracking were all, of course, passed. The legislative committee gave the reason for not allowing our motion to go forward. Which they also was presented to.
We're just called PC, right, in AGM and.
Yeah. We'll keep
Yeah,
going.
which one is that?
That was the feeding.
The feeding futures.
Yeah, futures.
So were they, sorry, they were specific about the fact that there was already federal funding and that's one of the reasons, is that correct?
That's right. And that's why the legislative committee didn't see it emergent because they had it year after year.
Though no one knows what the federal funding looks like.
Yeah, I will probably just rewrite that one, just, just be very specific about it being the provincial feeding futures, that's what we're asking.
Right.
So if we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah.
And then there's action items which were motions which are for BCSTA, our board's financial statements. The grant statuses of as of June 2024 and the 2025-2026 budget. And also the last one was the Thompson Okanagan branch constitution and bylaws, which they all got passed unanimously. And then we had new business, which was back at the AGM, last year's AGM, there's the non-voting student delegates of BCSG's annual general meeting. And now it passed at the AGM, but we brought it up for discussion. It went out to the old CEO of Mike Roberts, gave a presentation. And they were asking, he gave a whole list of negative and positives. And then Carolyn Brody, the president, asked if we would discuss the process of process which BCSD board should follow to have this initiative or this motion come to fruition. And there was a lot of discussion. First of all, there's confusion because everybody just blurted out, for those that had student trustees, how good it is to have them at the board table. And if we wanted to just take them to the AGM, then that's what we should be able to do. But there was a lot of discussion about equity of districts that have 16,000 students. How do they pick one student, two students to go to this function? And then how do they report back to all their students, all their districts in Surrey or whatever? So there was no real process given to the board. So I'm thinking that maybe the motion should be changed to say that those that have the ability or have student trustees, they want to attend, but they're not voting, they're just sort of learning about leadership and that. So I think this whole motion has to be rethought.
Yeah, it's not like we're requiring people to do something they're not already doing.
But the way the motion said, it said every school district has to bring trustees to it, and they're talking about, the transportation, that it's gonna cost, somebody from High Glide way more than from somebody in Richmond. So do we get BCST to level out the dollars of traveling and safety and all of that? So it's gotta be, I think, more AGM. It was a really good meeting, and I'm not sure if Daryl's for me, but I think she was stepping down.
There's an absence, wasn't there? Yeah. Her successor is being trained now.
Yeah, so there you go.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you for calling.
Yes.
I don't think we have anyone online for public question period. We don't have anyone here. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
Second by trustee Jefferson. And so we'll reconvene, so we're adjourned. We'll reconvene in our other meeting in about 2 minutes.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Great job, you guys. Great.